Yo, Trojan family, what's up? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Hope everyone is enjoying your day. One of the top players in the entire country just released his top 6 and included the USC Trojans. So let's get into that, what that looks like, and how strong of a pursuit USC will be for said player. Quickly, USC LAFB, as always, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make sure to check out FanDuel Sportsbooks right now. They have win totals released for a number of teams. USC is set at 8.5. Over under 8.5. I am smashing the over. You know how high I am on this program right now, heading into the second half of spring camp. So great odds over on FanDuel Sportsbook. Make sure to check that out. So the number one tight end in the country, Ahmad Hudson, just released his top 6 and included USC in that list. His entire top 6 is LSU, Texas A&M, Miami, Nebraska, Missouri, and USC. So a little different cast of characters there, if you will, than the usual. When you hear number one player at their position, it always includes Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, all of those guys, and none of them included outside of, really when you look at the big dogs, Miami and LSU, and A&M, I guess, is one of the big dogs now. Nebraska and Missouri, still obviously very good programs, but kind of in that, I would put next tier in terms of at least recruiting. But USC in there in that top 6. So this is going to be, okay, let me just say this. I'll give some background a little bit on Hudson. 6'6", 230 right now, according to Rivals. Again, these weights and sizes fluctuate. So, don't take that as the Bible for the total size, but that gives you an indication of where he is at heading into his senior season. He is from Ruston, Louisiana. So clearly LSU is probably the top team to compete with Lane Kiffin right now being his home school. But as I said, the number one tight end in the class, he is the number 14 overall player in the entire 2027 class, and that is per Rivals industry ranking. So really talented kid. If I didn't already say it, 5-star. So one of your, few 5-star players in the entire class. And so a really good one. Obviously would be a great get for USC. But the question for me will be, how aggressive will USC be in their pursuit? I've said many times, this is a fact. USC's NIL is now one of the most powerful in college football. I think it's a top 10. You could kind of, some maybe go a little lower than 10, some go higher than 10, but it is certainly right in that range of NIL and just, actual just raw dollars. But it is not unlimited. And obviously they had huge allocation for the 26 class. And so now their budget for this 27 class is going to have to be a little thinner, and they have to really allocate position by position, and, how they're going to spend at each position will be, I don't want to say telling, but will kind of show you kind of where that budget sits as it is now. We know they just signed the great honor Olave Johnson. He was the prize of this class for USC. He was like the non-negotiable, we are going all in and keeping the number one player in the state of California home. They offered him, it was his first offer back in eighth grade was USC. They followed through with it all the way through. And so he was their prize go. So a guy like Ahmad Hudson, 5-star number one tight end, you're looking at potential Mark Bowman type money. Will USC want to pony that up and get into somewhat of a bidding war, certainly with a team like LSU? We know Lane Kiffin, we know LSU, what they're spending. This may be one of their non-negotiables. So that, to me, more signals other tight ends that USC will target higher. Now, the fact they're in the top 6 is at least exciting, and will keep them in the conversation. And we know how good Chad Savage is, USC's tight end inside receivers coach. So he will certainly, as long as they're telling him to keep pursuing, he will certainly do a fantastic job on nurturing that relationship and keeping that going. But it's just a matter of, will they really want to spend at the end of the day that much for a position that they just spent probably the most at that position in 26 when you look at Mark Bowman? And if they're only staggered 1 year, are you going to be wanting to spend that much at that position. When you look at who else they are pursuing, Charles Davis, we've talked a bunch about him, right? The number 22 tight end in the class, really kind of a hybrid tight end and wide receiver. Rosario Edwards, one of the top players in California. He's the number 5 tight end in the class from Grant up in Northern California. Jace Cannon, the number 33 tight end, is someone that they've pursued. Tommy Douglas, the number 28 tight end. He was just on campus this weekend on March 13th. We saw him on Friday. Tanner Scott, the number 46th ranked tight end. He was also just on campus on Friday. And then I've talked about him a few weeks ago. Mason Oglesby, the number 23 tight end in the class. He also had USC in his top 6, but he is a heavy lean for one of the Indiana schools. He is from the state of Indiana. Indiana University is the big, heavy favorite. Purdue is doing what they can, and you always got to wonder about Notre Dame in the state of Indiana as well. So, but he had said when he got offered, he's like, you get an offer from USC, they're in your top because it's USC. So it's kind of cool to hear that him say. To me right now, and again, we'll see what NIL they really want to allocate to this position. To me right now, this is Charles Davis's spot, I believe. I just think when you look at his versatility of being tight end, receiver, great relationship already with a few members of the staff. He's been on campus multiple times. He is one of those rising prospects, but is not going to cost you what it would to get someone like an Ahmad Hudson. To me, that is the guy that ultimately will be USC's tight end spot. Now, the other thing is if they end up kind of recruiting him and saying, okay, we'll have you be our third receiver with Quentin Hale and Eli Woodard. You had Charles Davis, a hybrid, but he takes that kind of third receiver spot. And what you would have paid out for Osani Gale, for Eric McFarland, which are really high-profile receivers, going to be costly. Maybe then you go a little bigger at tight end in terms of spend. I don't know if that'll give you enough for Ahmad Hudson, but a Rosario Edwards in the state of California is someone you could pursue with that. So the way that Chad Bowden has really kind of ciphered this down, I have another video I'm going to come out later tonight giving the overall kind of weekend recap of recruiting and some updates on the secondary, Gavin Williams and stuff like that. But this is kind of a little tidbit of that, is they've basically done their budget based on position. So let's just say $5 million. I don't know what the exact number is. I'm sure it's a lot more than that. But let's just say it's $5 million. It's not necessarily, hey, here's $5 million, and then we'll just kind of, all right, yeah, well, we really want this player, so we'll give 2 here, we'll give 800 here, we'll do this. It's more of like, all right, the safety position is $2 million. The running back position is $500K. The receiver position is $1.4 million. Like, it's kind of based by position of how they allocate. Obviously, there's some wiggle room there that they can shift if need be. But I think they have a number probably at the tight end position that is probably less than an Ahmad Hudson will require. Now, I could be dead wrong on that, considering USC's in his top 6. They've obviously had conversations, and some of those conversations are about NIL, and clearly they're going to be competitive in that, or otherwise he wouldn't even have them in the top 6. So ultimately, we'll see how it plays out. I don't see them getting in a bidding war with LSU, but if he wants to get out of state and wants to come to the West Coast, obviously he would be a home run pick as the number 1 player at his position. So there's the latest on that. Like I said, I'll be back later tonight with more of an overall encompassing recruiting update from this weekend. And then, be back all week. So appreciate you, family. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to become a member of the show, you get discounts on merch plus other perks. So check that out. And obviously check out all of our merch anyway, which is just located right down below. You can check it out and help support LAFB. So appreciate you, family. As always, fight on.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.